as you know, Twisters did itself very well at the box office. Of course, it got kind of slowed down a little bit by Deadpool and Wolverine this past weekend, but the movie is doing very, very well, far beyond what people's initial expectations for it were. And the media is, of course, very, very upset about this because your average New York or LA journalist really just wanted the movie to be full of a bunch of climate change propaganda. And they're even writing articles taking the film to task for not lecturing you or I about the evils of climate change.
Yes, a columnist at the New York Times named Margaret Rankel wrote this scathing op-ed about the director's choice to leave climate change out of the movie, titled "Hollywood's Message to Red States: Our Movies Are For You." How dare they say that? For nearly 2 decades, Hollywood has seemingly missed no opportunity to sound the alarm about climate change, so it was startling when the weather-focused Twisters arrived from Universal this month with no mention of climate change at all. If ever there was a perfect vehicle to carry Hollywood's progressive climate change messaging, a big-budget movie about people caught in worsening storm patterns, wasn't this it? Apparently not. Movies should not be about preaching a message, Lee Isaac Chung said in a pre-release interview.
His name is actually now Lee Isaac Chad.
They call this a dog whistle.
Yeah.
This is called a dog whistle to conservative ticket buyers.
Did you see that? Like, so basically not just shoving a message in your face is inherently right-wing,
That's
which
a
is
dog
kind of
whistle.
based. What?
How revealing, by the way. Like, the thing that we like have a career off saying you do that you say you don't do, you're like, we're really mad that you didn't do this this time.
That was the first thing I thought of was like, look, there's nobody that's happier to wield the power of influence than Awfuls. You know, the average affluent white
The
liberal
laptop
female.
class, if you will.
And the best part is like they're very authoritarian by nature, and you can tell by how upset they are when they normally get their way, and then one time they don't, and they have to write op-eds about it.
They're trying to longhouse Lee Isaac Chung right now. They said studios seem to be heeding a message that many ticket buyers, especially in the center of the country, have been sending for a long time.
You can literally feel her quiver in anxiety and anger as she said that.
Their message: we just want to be entertained, no homework attached. Put bluntly, it amounts to an attempt by Hollywood to bend to red state audiences.
Or audiences.
Yes.
Just audiences.
Well, not just that, but also like what they leave out in this is the people who complain about these things never admit that they're not the ones funding them. And they're more than happy to waste your money to preach the message. Now, for the last 5 to 10 years, Hollywood seems to have been more than okay with wasting their own money.
Listen, this lady has a point. How dare these giant entertainment companies dare to entertain?
It's crazy.
Well, they noted that even Bob Iger has paid lip service, at least, to the concept of not messaging in their films. We have to entertain first. It's not about messages. I don't really want to tolerate the opposite, is what he said. But that's not true when it comes to Disney. I mean, if that's a directive, it certainly hasn't taken place yet.
The thing that's funny
everybody
about...
gets mad about Bob Iger, and like particular friend of the show has said, like, you know, Chapek was the conservative. It's like, but he got 10 times worse under him.
Yeah.
Like, Disney became like just a megaphone under him. And like, I didn't see that under Iger, so I don't understand why. I mean, I guess they're saying that he's not that, but like the anger that I see, at least from the right-wing YouTube, is that like Iger's causing this, but I don't see that. I don't see that. I see him more, as they're saying, like being kind of withdrawn from that approach.
One thing that's interesting about the people who write articles like this is it's always the ones who want to like weaponize empathy, you know, like weaponize art for a good cause. It's the worst type too, because it's like when they say like it's better to live under robber barons. Like, this lady will spend every corporation's money endlessly to make sure that you get forced to watch movies about climate change. She won't make her own short film about it. No.
It's funny how she's backseat driving the people who are actually in charge of making the art.
Well, it's funny because like that's our job, right? But we're here to critique the movies as they were. And if there is a political message in a movie, I will critique it. And most of the time, I don't find, at least in films, the big budget movies, it's not as noticeable as it is in television shows where it seems to be infinitely more noticeable. The article references like Batman mentioning climate change, I think back to the line that Idris Elba does in Hobbs and Shaw, where he mentions capitalism and climate change. And it was an eye roll in a 2-hour and 50-minute movie about dudes like beating each other up. And I can stomach that because most of the time I'm like, look, you're not going to get the perfect film anyways. And a collaborative effort means that something is going to end up in there. Now, there are worse examples. Like I hated the Batman.
Why?
I hated the line that she gave because it destroyed the tone of the movie, because the rest of the dialogue was evergreen, and then all of a sudden you got very, very.
See, I disagree. I thought that line was not like a message to the audience of this is how you should feel. It was literally a line being refuted, and she changed her mind on that.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, but the choice of words themselves were very current year, while the rest of the film doesn't carry a current year look or feel, which completely removes you from what you're watching and says, you are very firmly in the year 2021. This is very clearly about this message. If you had taken the same concept and phrased it differently.
Same sentiment.
Like I say they get rid of the phrase DEI. They never have to say that in a movie. All they have to say is affirmative action. And you're transported back to the 90s.
What was it that she said? It was like powerful white men or something?
Yeah. Like,
or she could have just said like billionaires.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, which is inherently more...
There was another element to it because she felt she was thrown away by him because she's not white and she's his daughter. And she felt that was an element when it wasn't an element. The element was just that he's a scumbag. And like that was the lesson she had to learn. And she was also holding it against Bruce Wayne too.
The other thing that was funny...
And I thought that was an interesting thing because she ultimately comes around and was like, oh, it's not that. I had my own preconceived notion that I had to let go of, and there is something there. And I'll agree with you. When the line hit me in the movie, I was like, oh, God. But then I was like, okay, if there's a reason for it, it can still be clunky. That's fair.
I also just didn't like the movie in general, but that's just me. I liked it. I liked it less the more I thought about it. It was like the runtime alone was enough to just 2 hours and 50 minutes.
It was super boring and repetitive.
But okay, so
Fincher movies.
The other thing that was funny here was that she lists in the other article, she lists a bunch of movies like movies have been used for a progressive agenda to varying levels of success lately, and she lists exactly one success
Barbie?
and 4 failures. Barbie, and then she lists The Color Purple, Strange World, The Marvels, Dark Waters, and endless other examples of.
I don't consider Barbie a success.
I mean,
well, financially,
if she's talking financially,
yes, financially it's a success, but it wasn't a success because of that. It was. There's an entire feminist diatribe in it, but people walk out and they're like, anyway, Ken.
Yeah.
You failed.
It goes on. It says it's a reflection of economics and the desperation of the film industry. It shouldn't be desperation that leads you to make movies that the majority of the audience want. Your net zero, like your starting point should be make movies that audiences want and then go from there. Right.
Well, she also said that it's not a complete winning formula because of Kevin Costner's recent blunder with Horizon, and they quoted Glenn Beck in one of the promos for that movie. Apparently, they featured Glenn Beck saying Kevin Costner may be the only one capable of telling the true American story in one of the promos for that. But obviously, it was a huge financial failure and got taken out of theaters early.
They're like, we already watched Yellowstone. I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
The thing that I find funny about it is like, if movies with heavy politics fail, what that really means is that like nobody saw them, right? So you end up back right where you started, meaning that nobody got your message. You've just ended up back there with less goodwill because the press around it is different, right? So you set yourself back by even trying.
She said Universal's approach to Twisters involved positioning the movie as escapist and fun and studiously avoiding socio-political issues. The last thing Universal wanted was a film that doubled as a climate change scolding, which would likely repel conservative ticket buyers. The chief marketing officer at Universal said, we couldn't afford to overlook any audience.
Told you.
With every decision,
Universal.
it was about how we can include and not exclude.
Universal is the only studio right now when their logo comes up that I don't just wilt in anger and fear that the movie's about to be garbage. Universal hits more than they miss.
I think she's just writing this for an audience that immediately attaches a negative connotation to what he said, but everyone else who's normal reads that and is like, this is great. What are you talking about?
Yep. It's just funny because the ladies who write articles like this, they're kind of trapped by their own neuroticism where they want to see this in a movie, whereas the average person doesn't want their movie-going experience to be a neurotic endeavor to begin with.
Well, we were talking about neurotic millennial women being the target audience for a movie like Inside Out 2, and it's doing incredibly well. But even that, I felt it was weighed down by a mental health awareness agenda.
But the average moviegoer wasn't. The average moviegoer just knows their kids wanted to see it and took their kids to see it, right? So you can have that underlying message, and if it's cloaked in the story well enough, then you can reach a whole new audience while also appealing to the average person who just wants to get their kids out of the house and take them to see a movie. The problem is, in my supposition, is that there's too much content being made. There's only, I think that really, really talented writers are a finite resource, and pairing really, really talented writers with studios that work well with them is even harder to do. So it's kind of like I always say, like, making a movie, as difficult as it is, making a really good movie is almost impossible. So to have it happen at all is kind of amazing, but this shouldn't be rocket science. It's a disaster movie.
Well, it wasn't rocket science for decades. I think that Hollywood using their movies and TV shows to propagate socio-political messaging has been a fixture for so long, but they were just better at hiding it.
I don't think it's just that. I think it's that audiences are more aware of it now. So I think one of the things that I've noticed is I go back and watch a lot of old movies, and it's there. The difference is you weren't aware of it at the time, so you still look back on it with the fondness you looked at it before.
They also
you were aware of
couched it in like more. So they tried to take. They were successful before when they would artfully communicate universal values, and what they're trying to do now is take those niche values and turn them into universal values, and it's hitting a brick wall. And then we feel so preached at for so long, even things that aren't that offensive feel that way. Yeah. Just because you're so like raw from the last one. And I wouldn't even say, like, when you said like good writers, I wouldn't call the writing on that movie very good.
In general, I was making more of a general
disrespectful
statement. I was making more of a general statement about Hollywood in general than just that film. Though, I mean, that was the original story for that idea was done by the dude who did Maverick. So
but it's a very simple like thing that we've seen a thousand. Yeah, no, I would agree.
It's why I laugh when people talk about WWE doing like predictable storylines. Predictable doesn't mean bad. No, when it's well executed,
it just depends what your end result. If you're making a mystery thriller, it shouldn't be that predictable. But this is like a call to action movie or a camaraderie movie or a overcoming obstacles movie, which are all very universal things that everyone can. You can like project your own tornado into this movie, and like, what is the thing I
like that
overcoming, whereas what this person wants is for her tornado dragon to slay to be your dragon to slay, the same as the people who are mad at Taylor Swift because they've got their own thing that they're angry about, and she must also be angry at it. And that's liberalism in a nutshell, everybody. Like, you must share in their misery.
Sad.
Me when I'm liberalism in a nutshell. Help! I'm in a nutshell.
So, guys, as it were, go out and support movies like this. If you haven't boycotted Hollywood entirely, you want to send the clear message that these are the types of things that people want to see. They want to see well done movies, and my hope is that Lee Isaac Chad, or that's what I'm going to call him. I'm calling him Chad. I'm not calling him Chung. Lee Isaac Chad.
They're going to call him Lee Isaac Chud.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to make sure that
I'm killing it with the puns today.
Yes, we're going to have to make sure that we push back on that one, and he gets Chad and not Chud, because making movies that everybody wants to see seems to be a lost art these days. All right, we got a $20 one there from Pop Culture Junkie.
He said, oddly enough, I think Universal may have learned that. I don't see the rest of it.
Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up here. It's I guess it's just
Sorry, I just don't have it visible right now.
Got it?
Oh, he said, oddly enough, I think Universal may have learned that cutting out the messaging was a good idea from the success of Minions and Mario.
I mean, I think there were more movies before that, like, for the most part, like, when I think of Fast and the Furious movies, are movies that don't have a message and...
Family.
Exactly. Family. Universal theme.
Well,
right?
sometimes even without a message, people will latch on to something like calling Princess Peach a girl boss or
Yeah.
Furiosa a girl boss.
The like I said, those lines in Hobbs and Shaw, which are Fast and the Furious movies, was a Fast and the Furious movie. It's just a throwaway line in there, and if you let that ruin the movie going experience for you, was it cringy? Yes, absolutely. But I think 20 years ago they would have just replaced those words with whatever the issue of the day was. The difference is that today everybody really, really cares about the issues of the day, whereas back in the day when you weren't looking at news 24/7. You didn't have that, that kind of open wound of the annoyingness of media and news information to constantly be rubbed.
Can I make one more comment on Twisters?
Yes.
That since I wasn't on, I don't know if you guys reviewed it on here.
We did.
But my takeaway from it is, at least, I don't know about you guys, but people like me are constantly told that we hate any movie that has girls in it, especially in prominent roles, which I maintain is not true. And Twisters is just another example of that, where the way that this particular character and the characters around it were treated was appropriate. And didn't hate it. It wasn't like, get the handsome hot guy back. Like, I can't believe it unless he punches this storm in the face. And that would
have been awesome.
And punches Kate in the face.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but there were people in the comments who were like, Kate is a girl boss. And I was like,
Yeah, no.
at this point, that term doesn't mean anything.
And it's also not true. Like, it was handled like appropriately.
She actually screwed up in the beginning.
Yep.
She then is terrified when she comes back. That's not girl bossing. Is she like a weather whisperer? Sure, but that was a trope in
She
the
also
first
didn't
one
do
too.
what I would have, if this was in worse hands, it would have been like, do you look what the storm did to this town and how bad that's going to be for my career. It was like, no, it was it was uncynical, even to a point, even to a fault, I would say it was.
Nope,
uncynical.
there's no such thing as too uncynical in my opinion. Hollywood should be more syrupy.
Yeah,
they should.
But it handled all of that so well. Like, nobody's being like, yeah, I can't watch this movie. Just, whatever, discount, whatever, Emma Roberts or whatever the internet called her.
Is that what they were calling her?
Somebody did.
Roberts?
And no, it's fine. Like, that doesn't.
Yeah.
People don't hate Ray because girl. They hate it because she could do no wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, like, literally got her boyfriend and best friends killed
Also, most of the time,
because of her hubris.
yes, most of the time, like I don't even care if they're overpowered. Just don't make them a dick to everyone.
Yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah, she
literally
was a little bit cold, but it was because of her trauma.
Callousness. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she messed up in the beginning scene. She messed up when she was storm chasing the first time. He showed her up that time. Then he also saved the day at another point in the movie.
in the pool.
Had a heart of gold.
Yeah.
Heart of
It
gold.
wasn't so bad.
Heart of
And,
gold like,
like,
that and cheekbones.
Just
My
think,
gosh.
like, somebody like called this like movie feminist. I was like, dude,
Yeah, no.
literally like bear hugged her to save her life, and I was like, in one of the most suggestive looking frames on accident.
Yeah.
But I was like, but it like that.
Sometimes people just want to be mad about
I know, but
something.
it
I don't know.
undercuts that entire idea. It's like, it's like people are getting sucked away, and he's just like
Also
holding on to
true-
it. It's like, that's not feminist.
True feminism would have never allowed him to be as forthright as he was and as brash and as overly confident as he was without portraying it in a negative light, which they do not. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.